Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of CRNA School Prep Academy podcast. I'm your host, Jenny Fennell, CRNA, and today we are going to talk about surviving and thriving as a couple in CRNA school. And so I'll just share my perspective with you guys on how me and my husband and I navigated CRNA school, and also kind of where we started and kind of how I think, based on where I've seen my friends and their relationships during school, kind of just advice I've gathered over the years that I hope will help you as you gear up for this journey as well. So, you may have heard statistics that are scary, like, half the people go through anesthesia school get divorced. Well, I'm here to tell you to not listen to that. And, while you may be told these things, maybe even from your program themselves, and I think maybe sometimes they do this just to kind of make sure that you guys understand the seriousness of CRNA school and how essentially probably a better way of saying this is talk to your loved ones and talk to them now. Don't wait till after you start the program to start addressing some of these issues. Make sure you're being very proactive when it comes to addressing your relationships prior to going into CRNA school. And so that's really the biggest key, you guys, is from the time you gain acceptance. And really, actually, it should probably start before that, and I know a lot of my students have done this, meaning they've talked to their significant others, their loved ones, that, hey, I want to go back to grad school. I want to go to become a CRNA, and it's very rigorous, and it's going to take 3 years of my life as a commitment. And so are you on board for this? And so a lot of couples already enter the realm of applying to CRNA school with the understanding that if you were to gain acceptance, you're not going to turn it down. You're going to go. And that means that they're going to have to be willing to sacrifice with you over the next 3 years while you're doing grad school. Okay. It doesn't mean things always work out perfectly just because you pre-plan, but it's definitely a good place to start to at least allow them your significant other to know that this is your aspirations. This is your career goal. And so that way, if they love you and want to be a part of that they're going to have to find a way to be supportive of that venture of yours. And so I really think, again, number one thing is communication. And this goes both ways, not just telling your significant other that this is what you want to do, asking them how it makes them feel. Well, how do you feel about me going back for CRNA? It's for some, they're going to be extremely thrilled and elaborated, just like, woohoo, yeah, do it. That's amazing. That's great. Maybe that might actually, especially depending on the relationship, I wish I could say this is an old stigma, but unfortunately it's one that has hung around for centuries and centuries, is, the money, who makes more money in the relationship, and is that going to be a problem? And I think that should be something that should be addressed early on in your relationship, because some people have a hard time letting go of that, especially if it's the man in the relationship for whatever reason. Not trying to stigmatize everyone in that category. I just know from being a woman myself and being my own personal experience with my friends and things like that can potentially be an issue in a relationship, or not even an issue, but more of just, it might cause some discomfort essentially, or make the other person feel as though maybe they're not as valued financially or as a partner. So address that now. Make sure that you're guaranteeing that has in no way, shape, or form affecting your relationship with them and how you feel about them. Or, see where does that fear come from? What does that stem from? Why do they feel that way? That's really what you have to get down to. If someone has those inbuilt beliefs that maybe they were raised with in some way, shape, or fashion, get down to the root cause of that insecurity and really try to address it head on. So that way it won't become a problem later on in your relationship and marriage. So again, it's really about communication and kind of addressing any fears that you both have, whether it be their fear of maybe you becoming more independent and making more money. And what if they're afraid of, maybe they have a trust issue. Maybe they're afraid that you're not going to need them. So therefore, what if you leave them because you're not going to need them financially? Maybe that's where their fear stems from. Maybe it's some kind of insecurity like that. Or maybe on your end, maybe you're fearful of, not having enough time for them and not showing them that kind of affection they're used to while you're in school. And what if you're afraid of losing them because of that? So again, dealing with these types of fears and emotions, as much as it sometimes is scary to open yourself up to like potentially even criticism of having these fears that may essentially be very unrealistic, it's important to address them, you guys, because every relationship has to go both ways. Every relationship has to be an open book, open slate, even if it's painful. And so I encourage you to take that, you want to be intimate with someone is to share your deepest, darkest secrets, to let them know who you are, even if it's not good, right? And they're supposed to love the pretty and the ugly, they're supposed to love it all. And it goes both ways. And so I encourage you to really essentially get deep with your partner prior to even applying to anesthesia school, to let them know all of your aspirations and potentially your fears, and let them address their fears as well. This should start early because I really think it can allow you to address problems in a timely manner to where you can actually take time to address them moving forward. The last thing you ever want to do is kind of put this kind of conversation on the back burner, get all the way to apply to school, and then start addressing it, and now have these major fears and concerns and potentially major relationship issues that now you may actually need counseling to get through, because now you don't have as much time to really work through them or even understand how these ever came up or how did you miss this. So I really think that's key, is communication. And so, I've had some students even tell me that maybe their significant other was on board this entire time, and now that they've gained acceptance, now they're having these major reservations and their fears are really coming out, and it is negatively affecting their relationship. And so I don't know if that stems from not being truthful, as far as what their fears really were, that maybe I don't know. It's hard to really say. I just know I've heard it happen before. And so again, I don't know if it's that person maybe being afraid to tell that person their fear. And then when it actually happens, now they will share that fear, but now it's almost kind of hard to address in the moment. So I really think it's key to have that open relationship, open conversation from the very, very beginning. And I think I'm going on and on about this. So I'm going to go ahead and go on to some other key points. When you're communicating with someone, I really think you need to talk about the time that's going to be involved for school, knowing it's about 50, 60 hour a week commitment between class and work, or, class and clinical, I should say, not work, but essentially I feel like the clinical aspect is your work, because you spend anywhere from 36 to 40 hours a week in clinical, and then you're expected to spend anywhere from, 15 to 20 hours a week studying, essentially. That's a lot, especially when it's day in, day out for 3 years straight. And so while it doesn't mean every week's going to be that intense, you're going to have some weeks that are going to be lighter than others. And now that some courses are moved online, I don't know, based on, the school that you're going to, that could stay some online format, you may have more flexibility in your schedule than what historically there used to be in anesthesia school. But talking about that time commitment and telling your significant other that things are going to be different, that you're not going to always be able to go to every youth group meeting, or if you guys are used to going out on Friday nights and going dancing, maybe you have cut that back to like 2 days or 2 times a week, or 2 times a month instead of every week. Whatever hobbies you do routinely together as a couple, make sure you're addressing the fact that you're going to have to probably cut back on a little bit of extracurricular activities. Time also comes into play when it comes to doing things like cooking and cleaning and grocery shopping and taking care of the dog, taking care of the children, running errands. You are going to have less time for those things. And so if your significant other is used to you doing a lot of those things, and maybe they just cut the grass and take care of the yard, but you do all the errands, all the cleaning and cooking inside, well, I think having this discussion now about how you're going to actually have to probably do that and take over some responsibilities in the house, which means you can't watch Friday night football. Having these discussions now, just being realistic, paint a realistic picture of what is expected of you. And so that way you can put your priority on studying so you can get your work done. Because trust me, the last thing you want to do is not have the time for school and not make the grades, and then have all the student loans, get kicked out of the program, and have all these student loans to pay back and no degree to show for it. You need to go into school with a support system that's going to support you so you can be successful. That is the most important thing. If you're going to go into school, you need support so you can be successful. And so they again need to be understanding of this and knowing it's just temporary. Again, I think doing this as a team, making it not seem like this is what I have to do. This is what I don't make it about me, about yourself, make it about us together. We're doing this together. I think will make them feel like, okay, this is going to stink for me too, but if it's something that I'm doing for them and they're doing for me, it's going to feel more mutual, meaning you're not just going back to school for yourself, you're going back to school for the future of both of you, for your family together, to be together and be happier and more comfortable and having a career you love, and you're going to come home happy from work instead of disgruntled from work. So getting them involved and making them feel like they're a part of your success, I think, is really key when it comes to getting your significant other to support you in your endeavors for grad school. The next main point I want to point out is flexibility, because school is ever changing and your needs are ever changing, especially even as a couple. I mean, think about I don't know how long you've been together, but think about the way you were in the beginning compared to where you are now. I know, my husband and I, we've been married for over 10 years, together for 15 years. We've changed significantly in that 15-year time. We now have kids. And all throughout that time, we've had ups and downs. Our relationship has been at some of our strongest points and some of our weakest points. And all of it, good or bad, has always fluctuated, always changed. So I think kind of being flexible and knowing that things are never going to be consistent. That's just not the way life works. And knowing that when you're in a rough patch, that's when you need to lean on each other the most and really work through those problems versus walking away. That's when you actually need to lean in closer. And sometimes that's uncomfortable when you're not happy with someone to lean in closer. It actually is hard to do. But I really promise you, if you can really take that uncomfortableness when you're angry or when you're mad or something's not going right and really lean in heavier on them and be closer with them, it'll allow you to address your issues more intimately and allow you to grow together versus apart. And so I encourage you to try to have that. And it's much easier said than done. I'm not a couples therapist by any means. I'm simply speaking from experience and mistakes as well. So I just want to throw it out there, being flexible, but again, leaning on each other during the times when you feel like you're going to break. That's really what's key when you're in school. You have to be open. You have to say what's on your mind. I remember being that person wanting to be secretive because I didn't want to share my emotions, because I didn't even want to deal with my emotions myself. And it didn't have to do with my partner, actually, it had to do with me and my day. But and they tried to reach out to me. They tried to ask me what was wrong, but I didn't want to talk about it. That is a mistake. And yet looking back on it, every now and then he was good about getting me to that point where I would express my emotions, but there are a lot of times where I just rather go cry by myself and not discuss it. And I don't necessarily know if that was really helpful for us at the time. If anything, it probably made them feel more spaced out. Did we get through it? Yes. Was it not? Was it, like I said, ups and downs? It was ups and downs. But, again, I think, looking back on it, what we could have done differently was when I was going through these hard emotional swings is to actually lean into him versus away from him, out of being embarrassed, essentially. And I think, my thing in school was I felt like I was, especially at my moments where I was over my boiling point with my stress, I think I felt weak. And I think I felt if they saw me like that, then I would be weak. And that's unfortunate that I felt that way. And now having 2 kids with a third one on the way, I am totally cool leaning in when I'm weak. And because I do know now that I can't do it all and that they have to share in my stress and my frustrations to know where I'm coming from. And also to understand that it's not them 9.9 times out of 10, it has nothing to do with them. It's actually something I'm dealing with. And so to not take it personally, essentially, when I'm being kind of crabby, so that's my advice as far as being flexible with one another. And the same thing goes with them, because keep in mind, you're going through school, you're going to be stressed out, you're going to have tons of things going on, the wheel's going to be moving, all these juggling parts. You may miss out on what's going on in their life, meaning you may miss something that's really major to them, or maybe not miss it, but maybe you might not understand how important it is to them. And that can be very hurtful. And so unintentionally, you could essentially be kind of blinders on to your significant other and what they're dealing with too in their own personal life. Because remember, their life is going on too. You're a part of their life, but they have other moving factors in their life too. And so they are putting things on hold for you, but it doesn't mean that they're not dealing with their own things at the same time. So as hard as it is to kind of take on more when you're in school, try to be open and hearing your significant other out when they're dealing with stressors as well. and making sure that, again, the flexibility piece is there, meaning they lean into you when they need it and you lean into them. And if you lean into each other like that, when you're both weak, you'll both keep each other stronger during the whole time. And that kind of plays into strength. That was my third thing, was strength. Is you're not always going to have the strength, and your significant other is not always going to have the strength. And now what do you do when you both don't have strength? What if you both hit rock bottom at the same time for whatever reason? What do you do? Well, guess what? You're in a give and take, right? But guess you're not alone. You have parents, he has parents, maybe has siblings, you have siblings, you have friends, he has friends. It takes an army sometimes, you guys. And I'm telling you, sometimes you're not enough. Sometimes the two of you will not be enough. And you have to fall back on further assets, your other support system, your family, your friends, your classmates. That is where you get your strength. Okay. And it's okay to not, I will always be able to rely on one another. There's going to be times where both you and your significant other are both down, and you need to fall on someone else for that pickup, because you can't pick up your significant other if you yourself is down. So therefore, that's when you need to reach out to your classmates who become some of your best friends. And I promise you that will happen. Your other friends, your lifelong friends, your sister, your brother, your mom, your dad, your aunt, your uncle, anyone that you rely on usually to help you in life, you need to reach out to them, let them know that you need them. And then when you're strong, help your significant other and encourage them to do the same thing. Meaning, if you know you can't provide what they need, encourage them to call up their mom. You're never too old to talk to your mom. I don't care how old you are. Your mom's always great. Same with dad. I mean, you're always going to be children to someone. And maybe that's me speaking as a parent and hoping that my kids still call me when they're older. But reach out and get help. Number 4 is bonding. And I think that this can get overlooked because you get so busy and so distracted. But it's something that's so important, because even though you're busy going through the motions and you're studying all the time, you cannot forget about bonding. And this kind of goes back to being inclusive, meaning including your partner in what you're doing. You're a team, and if everything's better in a team. If you try to do something all on your own, it's going to feel so one-sided and potentially even cause resentment, and just it's not fun for your significant other to watch you do everything by yourself. They want to feel like they're a part of it. And so again, getting someone involved in what you're doing, saying, hey, I miss you. I want to spend some time with you, but I really need to study. Can you quiz me? I mean, might not be exactly what you want your date night to look like, but do a 45-minute study session and then have some glass of wine. And by the time you have half a bottle, now your study session's done, and now you can enjoy the evening with each other. Find ways to make it work. And so bonding with one another while in school, even if it means trying to tackle 2 birds with 1 stone and doing a study session with your significant other, include them, make them feel like they're helping you and aiding in your success. That's going to create bonding. Also, just do little things. I mean, you can still take time out to go to a trampoline park every now and then, or a rock climbing wall, or hiking, or whatever it is you guys like to do with each other. Take that time with each other to still have that bonding time. That is so important. And that also goes back into just simply talking to one another and let them know how your day was, whether it was good or bad. That in itself is bonding time. So making sure you're still making time for that. And, back to the whole time and saying no to a lot of things. I remember being frustrated because, my husband at the time would always ask me, hey, Jenny, we got invited to go to this cookout or this barbecue or this youth group meeting or whatever it was. And I'd always be like, oh, the answer is no. Why do you even ask me? And that probably hurt him to hear that. And it upset me to have to say no. So it wasn't really helping either one of us. He was frustrated. I was frustrated. And, again, but that frustration came out of me not wanting to say no, and not necessarily being mad at him that he asked me, but just I was frustrated because I wanted to be able to say yes. And I felt like I couldn't say yes. And it got really old, always saying no to things that I really wanted to say yes to. And so just expressing that in itself, just telling him, hey, that's why I'm getting so upset right now, it's not because you asked me if I want to go to this cookout with our friends, but because I'm tired of saying no to things I want to say yes to. And I think that would be a lot better perceived than me just getting angry and saying no. If you guys can kind of gauge where that's coming from. So I hope all those tips kind of can help you guys pinpoint maybe areas that you need to think about as you venture in your journey as a couple. Don't be afraid. It's more about just embracing the fact that you're getting ready to go through a decent sized change and being flexible with one another. So I hope you guys, wish you all the best. And again, communication is the biggest part of it, you guys, and starting early and making sure you're addressing fears, but also make sure you're addressing excitement too. Don't just talk about all your fears. Talk about how exciting it's going to be when you're done with school and what you're going to get to do with your new schedule and your new financial freedom. Because for a lot of people, this is a huge, major step in a different direction financially. It's also a huge step in a direction schedule wise. I know for me, I was doing night shift as a nurse. I never wanted to do night shift. I just didn't have a choice. And so as a CRNA, now I get to be home with my kids in the evening. I've had a very flexible job. I've always been able to do whatever shift I want, essentially. And again, if I really wanted to work part-time, I could work part-time hours and make a full-time nurse's salary. I mean, that in itself is amazing. So make sure you're including your spouse in the excitement of what this career can bring to you and your future family or your family, and making sure that they are understanding just how valuable this will be as an asset to you all. And if you do that, I really guarantee they wouldn't be, they'd have to be supportive of that. But I think a lot of it comes from lack of understanding and potentially lack of, or fear thereof, of what's the unknown is, and not knowing what it's going to do to your relationship. So I hope that helps you guys. I enjoyed talking to you this week, and you guys all have a good one, and I'll see you next week.